Salam and welcome back to SomaliDispatch.com and to our weekly program, Dispatches. I am Abdikadir Guled. This week on Dispatch, we will be discussing a Somali woman's achievement and the challenges that they face as it relates to the International Women's Day on March 8th, Somalia's looming election deadline, and Somaliland President's visit to the United States. And we have to discuss these issues with us. Editor Sadia and Quays, Irby, both astute East African political analysts. Both Sadia and Quays, welcome to Somali Dispatch one more time on our Dispatches program.
Pleasure to be here.
Quays, if you could start us off by telling us, in commemoration of March 8th, some of the issues Somali women face and the role they play in society, if you will.
So first of all, without Somali women, I believe Somalia have not recovered from the long destruction that it had faced. We know the role that Somali women plays in the Somalia. They have been working for the people who have been left behind day and night. They face a lot of discriminations in every part of the community. If you look at the ministers, if you look at the offices of the government, if you look at the businesses, if you look at everywhere, the army, whether you look at the, even the society sector, if you look at the universities, the number of teachers that the Somali women have been given compared to the male professors and the teachers in the schools and everywhere. The number of discriminations they face is just unaccountable, and yet they don't really hold back anything because of that. They are the mothers that are facing difficult challenges. They have male and husband is child and everywhere. If you look at the casualties they face, so they are heartbroken in one way, they heartbroken in another way by not really being respected and given the equal opportunities that they deserve. Just if you look at the last agreement on 17th of September 2020 or 2021 by the TFGs and the central government, the agreement has been Somali women to get at least 30% of the parliament to be elected. I don't think they are going to achieve even 21% because a lot of analysts are saying this will be the worst portion that the Somali women can get in the parliament compared to the previous one, which they have, had a little bit larger portion. So if you listen to them, they will tell you, okay, we're happy. We're gaining, we're getting some kind of recognition. But if you look at closely, they really face, and yet again, they are the backbone of the economy. They are the ones that, if you look at the, soldiers that are being taken to Eritrea by the Farmajo government, most of the women, most of the mothers, sisters are crying daily. And yet again, nobody is taking their words and even bringing it into the media. So Somali women, they are really, really strong compared to the rest of the world, compared to Africa. They drive the businesses, they drive the education. They are the ones that provide in difficult situations. If you look at the civil war, if there is a war ongoing, men flee or run away, or they are in the front line and they are not providing. But yet again, they are the ones that are in the streets, from selling J-Colis, selling sweets. It doesn't matter what they sell. They always contribute and provide their children and their houses. So congratulations to them. They deserve a lot more than they get from us right now.
Thank you, Quays. Sadia, if you could speak to the same issue, perhaps on the side of political achievements and in terms of the liberation of the country from the colonial days to where we are today, if you can sum it up, your thoughts on that day and commemorating all the achievements Somali women we are celebrating today.
Thank you, Abdikadir Guled and Dispatch community, Somali Dispatch community. That's a huge question. And I think it will require more time for us to really discuss the women's contribution to the liberation of Somalia, or the struggle against the colonial powers. But before I go into that one, I want to just go ahead and second what Quays said, that Somali women have been the breadwinners of the society. They have become the backbone of the society, especially after the civil war, the war started. If it hasn't been for Somali women, I'm not really sure if Somali would be where it is today, because they have basically played both both roles. Before, when we were growing up, women raised the children, took care of the house, and basically was in charge of everything about bringing a responsible individual into the society. And the men were out and being able to bring were the breadwinners of the society, for that matter, when it comes to earning income. But after the Civil War, the roles were reversed. Either men died in the wars, or they were left behind when women migrated with children all by themselves as single mothers. And women became both, fathers and mothers. So they weren't any longer the one who was just raising the children. They became also the head of the household, where men used to be the head of the household. And when they became the head of the household, those men who survived or who made it to the places where these women have migrated, their wives, their sisters, their mothers, women succeeded in so many different ways. Of course, they struggled, and a lot of things have gone wrong, but so many other things also have succeeded and went well. But men also have suffered from a lot of trauma, because men ended up in a position where they have never thought they would be ending. And I think women, though they have done an amazing job, I think they have sort of also took advantage of what was available to them in the West, where they would be able to immediately report whatever issues that existed to the authorities, call 911 or whatever it is. I remember they made stories about the Rawaido. Qabia was one of them. Right. And that was very interesting. But overall, I believe Somali women have succeeded in so many different ways in the West, have been a big part of the struggle. But if we go back and really try to see how they were part of that struggle, Somalis only talk about Hawatako, but there were so many invisible women who were part of that struggle, who were either using Brambur or poetry, other poetry, or writings, because there were women who were educated and went out. And also, when I remember one of the stories that I was reading, when Abdullah Isa was going to New York to be part of to go to the UN to argue why Somalia should become independent, there was a difficult time raising enough money to buy his suit, because Somalis were so proud and also were so committed to getting the independence. Women in UK and different places sold their gold. So, Abdullah Isa and other men like him would be able to dress appropriately to meet their counterparts, so they could argue why Somalia should become independent. So Somali women have done an amazing things. They have succeeded. They have been very committed and reliable when it comes to the cause of Somalia. That said, we should never really also treat as though everything is, milk and honey. I think in another maybe discussion, we should talk about also where Somali women also went wrong, where they could have done better when it came to the civil war, or even when they fled, as I talked about earlier. One of the things that really always concerns me is, and I took this example before, I think, where women in Liberia, where they refused to sleep with their husbands. This is something Somalia, we don't expect Somalis to do because of our religion, but nevertheless, we could come up with something maybe similar, or maybe would have the same impact, where these women were saying, we're not going to sleep with you and be your wives if you're worrying. You need to put down your guns and choose peace in order for us to become your wife and, you know, your friend and the woman who takes care of you. Women in Kenya, they went to these leaders' offices or in front of their homes, and they basically, took off their clothes and stripped everything that they had and stand there naked. And men were so embarrassed and so shocked and also so humiliated because some of their women were standing there in front of other men. So Somali women, I'm not saying let's get naked and do crazy stuff or avoid sleeping with your husbands, but I think we could have taken a role that is Somali found and Somali implemented that could have forced our men to come together and find peace and forget and abandon the clan issue that has divided our communities. Because at the end of the day, really, Somali women, unless of course the woman marries the same man who's from the same clan, she is the clan of her children. Therefore, women should try to figure out a way to eliminate the clan system from the Somali society. And I think, or I believe, that we didn't do that, but we could still do it. As far as the election is concerned, this 30% for me, it's not satisfactory. If it was up to me, I would say, listen, let us rule the country, let us lead the nation for maybe next 10, 20 years. As women should take the helm of the leadership. And once we pull things out of the way they are, pull Somalia out of misery, then maybe men can come and compete. Maybe we can say that. But to say we reached our goal if we get 30%, I believe that's insult to women. United States is 330,000. One last census, I think 330,000. Somalia is only what, 15,000, max 20,000
million.
United States, United States, both the House and the Senate has about 28% of the elected leaders are women.
Right.
Of both houses. But in Somalia, who is only 15,000 or so, we're saying 30%. Right. So I feel the West, these things are basically being given to us from the West, and we're running with it without questioning. So women should say, either I want to be able to lead the country so I can pull this country out of misery, or don't tell me I'm going to have 30%.
Right.
And this election, as Quays put it they're not going to even get what they got last time.
Right. And if I could stay with you, Sadia, on that issue, with Somalia's looming election deadline, yet again set to be March 15, couple of days from now, do you think we will see the completion of that election and we can move forward from that?
It's very hard to say because I'm looking at the calendar right now. It's 13.
Right.
We have 2 more days. Right. And 2 more days, nothing is going to happen, especially in Garbahari, Gather region, right. Part of Jubaland. Because as far as I know, unless something happened today, because you're a reporter and you could tell me that, but unless something happened last 24 hours.
It hasn't.
Okay, nothing has moved then yet. Yeah. So therefore, I don't think the election is going to take place. Is going to come to conclusion by the 15th. That's 2 days from today.
And what are your thoughts on the Garbahari issue?
Garbahari, like Beledweyne, has the right to elect their own people, to make their own terms and decide how things should go. But the way things are in Somalia today, they could be forced to do, to hold the election either somewhere else or in Kismayo. Or there could be a system where they put in place where, Madobe or Ahmed Madobe could try to take all 16 seats, the same way Dani took all 16 against all those people who were running, but he came up with 16 new people. And behind the closed doors, he made agreement with the elders, and boom, before they knew, he had the 16 seats. So Somalia is very, it's unpredictable, yet predictable.
Right.
So it's unpredictable because you don't know where things are going to end up, but then it's predictable because what could happen is something that happens other places in Somalia.
Right.
So
I appreciate that.
yeah. So Garbahare could be tricky, but at the same time, it may not surprise us whatever happens there. But 15th is, I think, is a long shot.
Right. Quays, a similar question, your thoughts on the completion of the elections, the Garbahare issue, and perhaps these deadlines are looked at as a reactionary things where Somalis react to a deadline or a looming issue instead of being proactive, and how much of not being proactive in terms of the Somali system, electoral system, is this a problem?
Well, just one thing to add to what Sadia said, or maybe to respond to what Sadia said before I go into the election. Sadia said 30% is insulted to Somali women. And she also said very kindly, we should lead the country in the next 10 years. I mean, that is
Right.
an excellent question. I have said it in many places, from many places and many times. It's the time that Somali woman should be more than the Somali male who is joining the parliament. I'm not sure about leading the whole country without male. It's going to be a challenge because when the Somali people are dominated by male, our culture, if you look at it from the religious point of view, where it says very clearly a male should be the leader of the house and also to be the leader in the community and so on, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a while, Somali male to accept a woman leading every part of the government. However, we can start slow. I mean, we can say, okay, the next Speaker of the Parliament should be woman. We can say the next Parliament should be, woman. But we also need ambitious women stepping up the game, putting themselves forward, campaigning, joining the presidential election race and so on. But if you guys are holding back and just 1% of you are suggesting we should lead the country, it's going to be a challenge. So we need to see more parties led by women and registering in the government, in the parties. Very soon we are going to have one person, one vote. And again, we know how loyal Somali women are. They are the ones that are, even if you look at the ministries are led by Somali women, are more productive than the other ministers led by male. They are more loyal. The Somali commanders who are female, we're not expecting to accept a bribery or to cause problems. The Somali ambassadors who are women are not expected to sell their country cheaply and so on. So there is a lot of credit, and yet again, yes, there are things that you can contribute to stop corruption, to stop problems by, for example, a lot of male are contributing to the trouble, whether it's from Al-Shabaab side, whether it's the government side. So these are your sons, and if they are not your sons, you are an auntie to them or you are a grandma to them. So if you are really careful and wanting to make some changes and contribute to the good side of things, yes, again, there you go. So I'm going to leave it to that. Now,
right.
Moving on, when it comes to the election on the 15th of March, which is 2 days to go to, is not going to be the end of the election of Somali Parliament, simply because there's so many things left. Again, the woman is 30% is not going to be met. The agreement that has been in place, which is every region to have 2 cities that are electing parliaments, again, it's not going to happen. As Sadia mentioned, Garbahare is not going to be an option. It could, maybe there is possibility that to be an option, but I think that could be the sticking point of the whole election, because Madobe doesn't have trust in the people he's promoting or he's wanting to be elected in that area, to be elected inside the Garbahari, while Farmacho is still the stronghold of that region. Yet again, Farmacho is not going to let that region easily, because we know how far he has come and how he has succeeded so far in every agreement. So the fact that every other region has implemented first city and the second city of the election, and the last one was Beledweyne, and the second one was Bosaso, and the other one was Barawe, and so on, I think is going to be a tough ask. However, I think for the best interest of the country, Mr. Mudobe has to really let this go and allow these 16 seats to go into Farmacho's pocket, which we know are going to. So unless that happens, it's not possible. But are they going to meet the deadline on the 15th? No, it's not going to happen.
Okay, thank you, Quays. Sadia.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one correction on maybe clarification. One, I didn't say Garbahari is not an option. Garbahari's option is, and it's the only option, because the people of that region have decided to have their election in Garbahari, and as the September agreement was included, there should be 2 cities for each regional state, and Garbahari is the second one. Southwest had both, Galmudug had both, Puntland has both, even though, of course, there were some discrepancies. So for Jubaland, Garbahari is the only other option, and the only option that exists. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't say.
No, you didn't. But that's good that you clarified.
And and the second one, when I say women should lead, in Islam, Amirul Mu'minin, basically, what we're talking about is for the Amir Mu'minin to be a man, right?
Right.
So there is a president, so that's the Amir al-Mu'minin, even though, of course, they're not as religious as they're supposed to be being. So what we're saying is make the woman the prime minister.
Right.
And she forms her own government and she runs the country, and still you fulfill the requirement for the religion where the Amir al-Mu'minin remains the president and the woman is in charge of the government. And there are so many Muslim countries that have women leaders that are very successful.
Pakistan being one of them. Yes, and it's interesting that a lot of Western countries didn't even have a female leader yet. We know the fiasco with when Hillary Clinton ran for office, and she actually could have won, but it was because of her gender that she didn't. A lot would say. Quays, to conclude our discussions here today, let's move on to the president of Somaliland visiting Washington. As we know, the president and the delegation that he was leading arrived this afternoon in Washington time. Your reaction to that visit and what that means for Somalis in general, and particularly perhaps Somalilanders and maybe both Somalilanders and Somalis in general that live in the West, especially the United States.
This visit has come to a very critical time in Somali election. And I think the West are doing a lot of calculations, and it's also very, deeply related to the geopolitics of the area. Now, if you look at Farmacho, the Eritrean president, and also Mr. Abiy Ahmed are alliance. They are in one group. What they have been trying to do is Farmacho to continue to hold the Somali presidential seat, and kind of cause a lot of issues as much as possible. And they knew this is going to convert into some kind of war. We don't want to say a civil war. However, the encouragement from them, or at least the miscalculations they had, where everything is going to be stable in Ethiopia, everything is going to be stable in Eritrea. They were trying to train a lot of soldiers who are not registered, by the way, not registered in the Somali army in Eritrea. Then, those thousands to come back at the right time. For example, now I think most of them are either expected to land soon or have already landed. then to kind of contribute the force that Farmajo and Fahad are going to use in order to continue holding the power. That didn't happen because of the Tigray, the violence that has started in Ethiopia. That miscalculation has triggered the West's attention, and now they realized, okay, hold on, China is kind of really strong. If you look at it in Djibouti, it is spreading fast into Africa. Now, we know the situation in the relationship between Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, and so on. It's not going anywhere. So Djibouti became alliance with Kenya, kind of put pressure into the Farmajo's government. Now, yet again, Somaliland started some kind of relationship with Taiwan to put some pressure on China. Then China's relationship is strengthened with Somali government in response to Somaliland's situation. So if you look at it from that point, Ethiopia is already gone from the West to China. And now that alliance, if you look at it, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And now if China's relationship is getting stronger with the current president, already given shutters and licenses, Chinese, companies to fish from the Somali Sea, already West have got the alarm running in their head. And that's why they have to be really careful. They have to invite Somaliland President, Mr. Bihi, and say, hey, how do we address this? How do we solve out this problem? But it's also a signal to Farmajo and say, listen, we have the power to put some pressure on you to the level we can even recognize Somaliland if things are not improving in Somalia. But again, it's the mismanagement of Farmajo's government, because the relationship between Hassan Sheikh, when he was the president, and Somaliland was quite well. There was talks ongoing. They had meetings in Turkey. They had meetings elsewhere. The two teams from the two parties were engaging quite well. There are things that have been put in place at the time. But yet again, Farmajo came in and said, you know what, Somali, sovereignty, I'm the man, forget about everything, and kind of even put sanctions on them.
Okay, thank you.
Said nothing should go to them straight. Everything should run through the Somali government, which upsetted them. The last meeting that they had in Djibouti was almost an insult to Somaliland. They haven't had, friendly face. It was almost a campaign, usage from the Farmajo's point of view. And these people are intelligent. That's why they have to knock at the doors and say, hey, where do we go from here? Had he strengthened the relationship? Had he done well? Had he, done what he promised in his election pledge? Okay, bring Somali's community, being the elderly man to kind of unite Somalis, this wouldn't have happened. So unfortunately, that's what we have in our hands today.
Thank you. Sadia, your take on President Bihi's visit to Washington and what it means for Somalis everywhere.
Well, I think what Quays mentioned is has a two-tier to it, which is really good that he went with the geopolitics. So if I go there first, the geopolitics is an issue or an angle that's very important that Somalis need to look at, because United States is very concerned about China. That's true. They're also concerned Russia because with the United States not being very friendly with the Emirates right now. Emirates also coming to Berbera port, trying to establish that for their own political gains, also because they're looking also at the geopolitics and having ways to sort of tame Yemen. United States also is thinking about that because United Arab Emirates cannot be a trustworthy partner anymore because they also sided with Abiy. Remember, they provided some of the weaponry that was used against the Tigrayan people. So that also is an issue. So United States is eyeing again to have Berbera as their own base, because remember, Djibouti, the United States is not there and China is there now, which is very interesting because before it was French and United States was the other side. But now China has the bigger part of the pie, and United States is trying to figure out how to balance that. And to do that, as Quays said, they're sending signal to the Somali government, which is, see what we're doing. I don't think they have intention of recognizing this region, Somaliland, but what they're saying is sort of trying to twist their arm and say, we're going to do this if you don't do this. So we're trying to sort of convince the government to do things that they would not otherwise do, because there is also the suspicion that Somalia may be also shifting to the east also. And if things continue, they will do that. As far as the talks and the responsibility and who takes it, I'm not really fully in agreement with Quays, because Farmajo, I don't know really all the details, but again, I will fall on the reporter to confirm this or tell me that it's otherwise. He did apologize on behalf of the government to Somaliland, and I think no other president has done that before. That's one. Two, the government of Somalia also is not responsible of Bihi coming to Washington. Silanyo came 2013, I believe, to Washington, D.C. And at that time, I think President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud was in place. So none of them are responsible. It's the West playing game with the Somalis, taking advantage and exploiting their division and their disagreements. So it's up to the Somalis to unite and form a united front to tackle these issues. As far as the recognition and not the recognition is concerned, as a lady from Hargeisa said when she was very interesting talking, to one of the people, she said, and her video was actually trending. She said the recognition of Somaliland is not found in the Western countries, in English, of course. She said in Somali, and so eloquently. She said you can find it in Mogadishu. So she said the issue way frontai, but we should go to Mogadishu and ask our walalahan or our brothers and sisters in Somali to give us the recognition. So what I'm saying is anyone who wants to have something really done for them, if another Somali wants to secede, I think they need to start the negotiations with their brothers and sisters in Somalia. But then also, I just want to say to the people in the former British protectorate or British Somaliland, that if you secede and you succeed, know that also Sol can leave and also secede. So is Senak, so is Audal. So what you're talking about is maybe the British protectorate or British Somaliland becoming 4 countries. If that,
yeah. No, I appreciate that response. Quays has his hand up, and Quays, I see you want to weigh in on this last point. I give you about 30 or 40 seconds before we conclude. Go ahead.
I mean, there's not much to really add, but what I'm trying to say is we have to accept Sol and Senak and Ain as part of Somaliland in order for us to kind of even have a good negotiation points with Somaliland. So that's non-negotiable. If there has been protectorate, British protectorate especially, those regions was part of Somaliland. We kind of have to agree to this. But my point really is Mr. Farmajo has apologized for his own election campaign, has met with Somaliland in Djibouti when he was really in critical point, and he knew he was about to go as well, and he knew that even the ex-prime minister situation, there was a lot of pressure from everywhere, and every step that the current president has done for Somalia is not something that he has done because of Somalia interest. He has done it because his own political gains. That's all I wanted to really mention. Somalis have understood and learned the Farmajo's politics and Farmajo's mind, Farmajo's thinking. Everything, it's all about him. Everything centered around himself. Anything outside that is there's no longer interested to him. If you look at the droughts, for example, look at his region, his own region. He's holding to the 16 seats in Garbahari. Again, that is the most affected region by the droughts, and yet again he's not even doing anything about it. Yet again he's holding the seat. So anyway, I'll leave to that.
No, point taken, and you know, politics is what's possible, and every politician would see where, you know, his interest or that politician's interest and the country's interest intersect, and if they do, then that's great, and if they don't, there are consequences for political decisions made by any leader, be they Somalia or elsewhere. Unless Sadia wants to weigh in, I think go ahead, Sadia, if you.
Sorry, Quays, I didn't mean to come after you again, but I just wanted to say, number one, Farmaajo is not from Gado. That's not his region. He's from Galmudug. So I think that's one thing that we need to put a rest to it, because I think people say he's from there because like Abdikadir is from the south. Right. I'm from the south, even though the clans may be sent somewhere else. Right. So people are not really responsible to the clans that they were born into, that they were told that they're part of. So if you're saying because of his clan is there, is another thing, but the guy is from Galmudug. He's from Abudwaq. So that's one. And next thing is, if really we want a negotiations and peaceful resolution for what's happening in these negotiations, I honestly think there are warlords everywhere. You have them in the south, you have them in the north, whether it's Puntland or other places. There are people like Musa Bihi who are in the Somali parliament today, who were elected as parliamentarians. So we're not only blaming Musa Bihi, but we have to really paint them all with the same brush and say they're all the same. I just want to make sure that
for time purposes, I really have to conclude it there. I appreciate both of you for coming on tonight, and perhaps we will continue, not perhaps, I guarantee we will continue these discussions further. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.